You've felt it before, haven't you? The moment you stop chasing, stop begging, stop needing, suddenly the world leans in. It's as if the universe itself has been waiting for you to drop your hunger, and in that silence, everyone begins to want you. This is no accident. It's not fate, not luck, and not some invisible law of attraction. It is a principle of power that Niccolo Machiavelli understood centuries ago. People are drawn to what does not need them. Needing nothing is not weakness, it is a signal of abundance. It is a weapon sharper than any sword, because in a world of desperate hands, the one who stands still becomes the one everyone reaches for. Machiavelli saw this in rulers. He saw that the prince who appeared desperate for allies was devoured by them, but the ruler who acted as if he needed no one was courted by all. When you carry yourself with this detachment, you no longer walk into rooms as a seeker, you enter as the prize. And when you become the prize, the game flips. People no longer evaluate whether you're worthy of their attention, they scramble to prove they are worthy of yours. This is why those who need least attract most. It's not charisma, not beauty, not even power in the raw sense. It's the aura of sovereignty, the rare air of someone who is whole without permission. Think about your own life. Have you noticed how interest surges the moment you stop returning texts, stop over-explaining, stop pleading to be seen? The absence creates gravity, and gravity pulls everything toward it. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But hidden inside this line is another truth. Love without need becomes respect, and respect without need becomes magnetism. You must understand, need is a scent. It leaks through your words, your body language, your very presence, and just as predators smell fear, people smell need. Show too much of it, and you will be played, ignored, or discarded. Bury it, burn it, kill it, and suddenly you will glow with a strange power. That power is independence. Independence terrifies people because it cannot be controlled. If you don't need them, they cannot bargain with you, they cannot threaten you, they cannot seduce you with crumbs of attention. And so, ironically, they rush to give you everything. This is not a trick, it's psychology. Humans evolved to seek what is scarce, not what is abundant. When you show no need, you show scarcity. And scarcity makes you valuable. It makes them chase, cling, and invest. It flips their mind from should I to I must. This is why Machiavelli insisted that a ruler must cultivate appearances carefully. Not just strength, not just fear, but an aura of unshakable composure. Because whoever appears unshaken becomes the anchor in a storm, and everyone runs toward the anchor. You see this everywhere. In dating, the person who is least desperate commands the most attention. In business, the brand that doesn't beg for customers is the one people line up to buy from. Neediness is noise. And in a noisy world, silence is seductive. That's why the one who doesn't need anyone is heard the loudest. But let's be clear. This is not about pretending. Fake detachment collapses under pressure. This is about building such a fortress inside yourself that you truly need no one. When you reach that point, you become untouchable. Because no bribe can tempt you, no insult can shake you, and no rejection can wound you. They want you because you don't need them, and that is the purest leverage. Machiavelli knew leverage is the true currency of power. Money can be stolen, armies can be defeated, but leverage lives in perception, and the perception of not needing anyone gives you leverage over everyone. Pause for a moment and reflect. How much of your life has been spent trying to be chosen, and how much stronger would you be if instead others were trying to be chosen by you? This is the shift. This is the art of becoming wanted, not by chasing, but by removing the chase from your blood. It starts with your frame. Frame is the invisible structure that decides who reacts and who dictates. Need destroys frame, detachment builds it. When you carry the frame of someone who does not need, others automatically adjust to it. They lower their voice, they choose their words carefully, they seek your approval without realizing it. Why? Because humans are wired to follow those who seem sovereign. And sovereignty is simply this, self-rule. You are enough within yourself. Everything else is a negotiation, not a lifeline. This is where people misunderstand Machiavelli. They think he taught cruelty for cruelty's sake. But really, he taught necessity, the cutting away of weakness to preserve strength. And the greatest weakness of all, the weakness of needing too much. Because once they know what you cannot live without, they own you. So Machiavelli's hidden law was this: appear as though you can live without anything. And in that appearance, you will gain almost everything. But let us go deeper. What happens when you master this art completely? You stop being an option on the table and become the table itself. Others sit, negotiate, and plead, but you are the ground on which the game is played. Notice how kings never beg their subjects for loyalty. They rule because the crown signals they already possess it. The power flows not from the plea, but from the posture. That posture comes from needing nothing. Even in personal relationships, this law holds true. The lover who clings too tightly suffocates attraction, while the one who holds loosely becomes irresistible. Because detachment breathes oxygen into desire, while need strangles it. Scarcity is not about playing games. It's about living in such a way that your life is already full. The one who is full doesn't beg for scraps, and that fullness radiates outward as confidence others cannot ignore. The first step was seeing the truth. Need repels, sovereignty attracts. But now we must go further into the strategies Machiavelli himself would arm you with. Because it's one thing to understand this law, it's another to live it with precision. Let's begin with appearances. Machiavelli wrote endlessly about the power of appearance because perception shapes reality. It doesn't matter if you feel uncertain inside. If you look untouchable, the world will treat you as untouchable. That's why kings sit on thrones. Not because the chair itself gives power, but because it symbolizes separation, distance, untouchability. The throne creates an image. I don't need to chase you. You come to me. You must build your own throne in life, not literally, but psychologically, socially, and strategically. That means elevating yourself above desperation and crafting signals that you stand apart. In conversations, this looks like patience. You do not rush to fill silences because silence is your throne. You do not over-explain because sovereignty doesn't justify itself. In relationships, this looks like boundaries. Not weak lines drawn in sand, but walls of stone that others cannot cross. When they test you, you do not tremble. You enforce your standard and they learn to respect it. In business, this looks like scarcity. The professional who is available at all hours becomes disposable. The one who limits access creates demand, and demand creates value. Scarcity is not cruelty, it's design. If you give yourself too freely, the world assumes you are common. But if you hold back, the world assumes you are rare. Think of luxury brands. Their value doesn't come from the material, it comes from their refusal to sell themselves cheaply. And so it must be with you. Your time, your energy, your attention must be priced like gold. Machiavelli would say, let them wait, let them crave, let them earn the smallest piece of you, and they will treat it like treasure. This is why sovereignty often looks cold. Because in a world drunk on overexposure, the man who withholds becomes intoxicating. He is not starved for attention, so attention becomes starved for him. But this strategy cannot be faked. If you withdraw in order to manipulate, they will sense the hidden need. True detachment only comes when you no longer require the outcome to validate you. This is where self-sufficiency enters. The one who can feed himself never begs for food. The one who can stand alone never fears being abandoned. Machiavelli saw that rulers who built their states entirely on mercenaries crumbled. Because mercenaries were loyal only to gold, not to the crown. The prince who relied on them was fragile because his power was borrowed, not owned. And what is need if not borrowed power? You lean on others to fill the emptiness you have not conquered within yourself. And leaning, as Machiavelli knew, is the fastest way to fall. So you must become your own army. Build your own wealth, your own skills, your own inner fortress. When others see you armed with independence, they will want you more fiercely than if you begged for their aid. Think of the paradox. When you can walk away, they beg you to stay. When you can thrive alone, they invest more in you, because humans are wired to overvalue what they cannot control. Now consider emotional control. Machiavelli understood that passion was dangerous for rulers. He warned against being consumed by love, lust, or anger because these were leashes that others could pull. If someone can ignite you with an insult, they own your reactions. If someone can break you with silence, they own your validation. If someone can bait you with flattery, they own your ego. The sovereign man cannot be owned. He may feel, but he does not depend. His emotions are weapons, not weaknesses. So when someone withdraws affection, you do not chase. When someone withholds praise, you do not collapse. When someone tests you, you respond with calm indifference, and indifference is the sharpest blade. Why? Because indifference exposes need. The one who is ignored panics. The one who is sovereign remains unmoved. And in that stillness, the power dynamic flips entirely. This is why indifference terrifies people, because it says, I am already full. Nothing you do will make or break me, and that message forces them to increase their investment to matter to you. Machiavelli would remind you, people are not loyal by nature, they are loyal to their own advantage. So when you show that you do not need them, they see that gaining your favor is an advantage they must earn. And suddenly, they work to please you, not the other way around. This is the essence of frame. Frame is not words, it is the invisible gravity of your stance. The one who needs nothing naturally bends the world into his orbit. But here lies the danger. Sovereignty can breed arrogance, and arrogance invites rebellion. So Machiavelli warns Project Independence, but temper it with selective generosity. Think of the lion and the fox. The lion terrifies, but if he only terrifies, he is eventually hunted. The fox deceives, but if he only deceives, he is eventually mistrusted. The true sovereign blends both. Independent, like the lion, strategic, like the fox. He needs no one, yet he knows how to let others believe he values them. Disillusion is critical, because while you do not depend on anyone, people must feel they matter in your kingdom. Otherwise, their envy will turn to sabotage. So Machiavelli would advise, give them tokens of favor, not because you need them, but because they need to believe you do. This balance keeps them loyal while keeping you free. Look at great leaders of history. They rarely confessed need, they projected inevitability. They allowed others to feel useful, but never revealed reliance. Even when surrounded by allies, they carried the aura of with or without you I endure. And because of that, allies clung tighter. It is a paradox of human behavior. The one who can live without you is the one you fight hardest to keep. This applies to love, to power, to business, to every arena of life. If you don't need the deal, the buyer raises their offer. If you don't need the friend tries harder to earn your loyalty. If you don't need the lover burns hotter with desire. Sovereignty is the great amplifier of all pursuits. It turns rejection into proof of strength. It turns absence into presence. It turns silence into music. But beware. Sovereignty requires sacrifice. You must kill the part of you that longs for constant validation. You must bury the impulse to chase what runs away. Most cannot do this. They fear emptiness, so they cling. They fear solitude, so they submit. But Machiavelli would say, solitude is the crucible of rulers, for it is in solitude that you discover your own sufficiency. And sufficiency is the only foundation upon which sovereignty can be built. Do not mistake this for isolation. The sovereign still engages, still builds alliances, still moves among people. But he does so from choice, not compulsion. And choice is the root of power. When you choose to engage, your presence is valued. When you are forced to engage, your presence is consumed. So cultivate this discipline. Never enter spaces from hunger. Enter from fullness, even if you must fake it, until the fullness becomes real. Because hunger betrays itself, and fullness announces itself without a word. The fullness comes from mastery. Mastery of skill, mastery of body, mastery of mind. The man who has cultivated himself radiates sufficiency, while the man who has neglected himself leaks need. So sharpen your weapons daily. Read, train, build, create, fill your arsenal until you know, deep inside, that you can thrive alone. This quiet knowing will carry you more than any performance ever could. For sovereignty is not loud, it is silent. It is not flamboyant, it is composed. It is not desperate, it is still. And in that stillness, people find something they lack. They project their own hunger onto you, and your silence magnifies it. This is why sovereignty is magnetic. It reflects the emptiness of others back to them. They do not want you because you chase. They want you because you mirror their own need, and they sense that in your presence it might be filled. This illusion makes them cling, invest, and sacrifice more than you ever asked. That is the Machiavellian art, to need no one but to let everyone need you, to hold nothing tightly but to make others tighten their grip on you, to stand alone yet never be left alone because all want proximity to sovereignty. So ask yourself, what thrones are you building? Do you carry yourself as if you are the prize? Or do you still enter rooms like a beggar waiting for coins of approval? The truth is brutal but simple. The final step is not just practicing sovereignty, it is embodying it until it becomes second nature. Because true power is not a performance, it is a presence. And when presence no longer bends to need, it radiates like fire in the cold. Machiavelli knew that sovereignty must be maintained, not just achieved. A prince may rise without need, but if he grows dependent on flattery, wealth, or allies, his rule rots from within. So too, in your life, detachment must be renewed daily, or need creeps back like weeds through stone. This is why discipline is non-negotiable. Discipline is the scaffolding of sovereignty. Without it, you collapse into impulses, and impulses are chains the world loves to pull. Discipline over body, because weakness in flesh leaks weakness in aura. Discipline over mind, because scattered thoughts reveal scattered rule. Discipline over time, because the man who wastes hours signals he is cheap to the minute. Machiavelli would say, appear constant even when the world shifts. That constancy comes from inner governance, the refusal to be ruled by appetite, fear, or vanity. The one who governs himself cannot be governed by others. But sovereignty is more than abstaining from need, it is converting absence into leverage. When you do not chase, your silence becomes a test. Others desperately try to pass. When you do not react, your stillness becomes a riddle. Others ache to solve. This is why kings are studied, not because they speak much, but because they speak rarely. And every rare word carries weight, not because of the syllables, but because of the scarcity. So too with you, less need, fewer words, fewer emotions, all of them strike harder. Consider this in modern life. The man who floods social spaces with oversharing bleeds value. The one who reveals little becomes the axis of speculation, and speculation fuels desire. Machiavelli warned rulers, never reveal the full measure of your intentions. Why? Because mystery holds power where clarity breeds control. If they know exactly what you want, they can deny it. If they do not, they cannot. So cultivate mystery, not as a gimmick, but as an extension of sovereignty. If you do not need them to know you, they will need endlessly to figure you out. But mystery without presence is empty. You must back your silence with competence, your distance with strength, your restraint with results. Otherwise, you are not sovereign, you are simply absent. This is the balance: silence plus proof, stillness plus achievement, scarcity plus substance. Machiavelli would remind you, men are impressed not by intentions, but by outcomes. The sovereign shows his independence not by words, but by the empire he builds while others beg. And when the empire stands, people rush to serve, hoping to belong to something they could never create. Now, let us turn to enemies. Because the sovereign, who needs no one, will still breed resentment. Independence is admired in secret, but envied in public, and envy always sharpens daggers. The sovereign must anticipate this. If you appear too perfect, too invulnerable, too beyond need, people will conspire to bring you down. They will whisper, "He thinks he is above us," and whispers can spark revolts. Machiavelli advised rulers to blend strength with accessibility. Not to be needy, but to be seen as human enough that others do not feel alienated. This keeps envy manageable while sovereignty remains intact. So show small cracks, but never real ones. Reveal minor flaws that make you relatable while keeping your true fortress hidden. This illusion shields you from envy while preserving respect. Remember, fear keeps people obedient, love keeps them loyal, but balance keeps them stable. And stability is what sovereignty requires, because in personal life, this means granting enough warmth to keep others close while withholding enough to keep them striving. In business, this means rewarding loyalty but never making loyalty your dependency. In relationships, this means giving affection without drowning in it so that your presence never becomes cheap. Balance is the art of rulers. Too much distance, and you seem cold. Too much closeness, and you seem needy. But the sovereign walks the razor's edge, untouchable, yet never entirely absent. And what of betrayal? Because when you need no one, betrayals sting less, but they still come. Machiavelli would say, expect betrayal as the tax of sovereignty. Those who cannot match your independence will envy it, resent it, or attempt to wound it. Do not plead when it comes. Do not collapse. Simply replace and rebuild. The sovereign treats betrayal as weather, inevitable, temporary, unworthy of despair. This is the coldness of sovereignty. You are loved, but you do not need love. You are admired, but you do not need admiration. You are served, but you do not need servants. And because you do not need them, they need you more. Because you do not beg, they beg for you. Because you can live without, they cannot live without you. Now imagine living this way fully. Imagine walking into rooms knowing you could leave them empty-handed and still be complete. Imagine facing rejection with a smile, because rejection is just confirmation of your independence. This is not arrogance, it is liberation. Because when you no longer need, you are no longer bound. And freedom is the rarest currency, the one all secretly crave but few ever earn. Freedom is why they will want you, because they are chained to their cravings and you are not. And standing near you, they hope some of that freedom rubs off on them. This is what Machiavelli would whisper across centuries. Need is the leash, sovereignty is the sword. And the one who holds the sword will always be wanted by the leashed. So, how do you cement this in daily life? Withdraw approval unless it is earned. Withhold access unless it is deserved. Offer presence, but never as a guarantee. Do not explain every action, for explanations are the language of inferiors. Do not justify your silence, for silence speaks louder than words. Do not apologize for absence increases worth. Live in such a way that every piece of you, your time, your energy, your focus, feels costly. And when people feel it cost them to gain you, they will treasure you far more than if you gave freely. Scarcity does not reduce love, it multiplies it. And in this scarcity lies immortality, because sovereigns are remembered while beggars are forgotten. And the line between them is simply this: beggars need, sovereigns do not. So walk as the sovereign, walk as if every step could stand alone. Walk as if the world is yours to keep or yours to leave. For everybody wants you when you don't need anyone. They want your stillness, your sufficiency, your gravity. They want your throne even as they kneel before it. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He saw that men devour the desperate and court the detached, and nothing has changed because human nature never changes. So let this truth burn into you. If you need nothing, you will attract everything. If you demand nothing, you will command everything. And if you chase no one, everyone will chase you. That is the final law. That is the sovereign's path. That is how you become untouchable in a world built on hunger.